Christs have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. If we live in the flesh, in the Spirit rather, let us also walk in the Spirit. Let us not become conceited, provoking one another, or envying one another. But the fruit of the Spirit, this identification mark in all of us who are truly saved, begins with love. Now, let me start where I finished with you 2 Sundays ago and just remind you of 2 or 3 things, and then we'll dig in and talk about this the rest of our time. These evidences of called the fruit of the Spirit are evidences of the presence of the Holy Spirit living within us. In other words, these things in a life are not something you can just conjure up on your own to fake somebody out. I mean, if you really have the fruit of the Spirit, as we'll identify them and illustrate them, that is a work of the Holy Spirit in us. Now, while you can't conjure them up or fake it, you can develop or hone them. And so, possibly as you read down through that list with me, verses 22 down to 24 and 25, maybe some of those characteristics, even just a cursory reading of that, you may have thought, I'm a little weaker in that area maybe than some of those others I feel pretty good about, but that one, that's tough on me. Well, that's okay. It doesn't mean you're not saved. What it means possibly is that it's just not developed in you, and believe me, God will come and develop those things in us that are weak. The second thing I would point out is that the fruit is singular. In the Greek language here, this fruit of the Spirit is singular, it's not plural. In other words, these pieces of identification are a package deal. You can't just focus on 1 or 2 and leave the others. It doesn't work like that. You can't say, well, I really am interested in love and in patience, but I'm just not really that much into self-control. No, it doesn't work like that. It's a package deal. And the third thing I would remind you is that every one of these fruits of the Spirit is an evidence or a characteristic of Jesus Christ. Every one of them. We're going to focus on that certainly this morning as we develop this. What I'm saying to you is this: if you are working to develop or hone this fruit of the Spirit that God puts in you, but if you're working to develop it, make it better, serve with it better, then you're automatically working to become more like Jesus Christ. And so it's worth our while to study these. So the first one is love. The fruit of the Spirit is love. I borrowed Kyle's t-shirt. Now, fortunately, this one's been through the laundry, so that's a blessing for all of us this morning, I promise. But this is his tennis t-shirt from school. He plays on the Cornerstone tennis team. And he was wearing this around the house one day, and I don't pay much attention to that kind of stuff, to be honest. But he walked past me, and I saw what was written on the back, and I said, Kyle, I'm getting ready to preach a series of sermons, and when I get to this one, I want to borrow your t-shirt because it's exactly what I want to talk about. And that's their slogan of their tennis team. Isn't this awesome? Their tennis shirt says, to a tennis player, love means nothing. To a Christian, love means everything. Isn't that a great saying? It's exactly right. If you know anything about tennis, you know the first part's right. I'm just going to put that there for now and hopefully keep it a little bit in front of you to remind you of that. To a Christian, love means what? Everything. It means everything. So Paul uses this word love. If you're truly born again, then what will emanate out of your life is this characteristic of love, among other things. So what is he talking about when he says that? Well, let's start here, because there is, as I'm sure you know, a lot of really bad information about love in our culture and our society today. So let's start here. Let's start with what love is not. And then we'll get to what love is, as Paul describes it in the word he uses here, and some ramifications of that, what that looks like in our lives. But first of all, let's talk about some things love is not, because a lot of people really get mixed up on this. So let's start here. Love's not a feeling. Love is not a feeling. Have you ever heard somebody say, well, boy, we are so in love, I can't even think about him or her without just getting this funny feeling in my stomach. It's love. And I always think, well, that might not be love at all. That might just have been last night's pizza. It's not necessarily love. And by the way, do you really want to spend your life with someone who every time you think about them that makes you sick to your stomach? It may not be love at all. It may just be a feeling. Now listen, love can cause warm and fuzzy feelings, but those feelings themselves are not love. And we live in a society that's all about the feeling, and they identify it as love, and it just is not true. Now, the second thing I thought about, I could probably stand here and talk to you all morning about this kind of stuff, but the second thing that I thought about was the fact that love is not good chemistry. It's not good chemistry. I've had couples tell me, well, we just love spending time together, Phil. We can talk for hours. I just can't imagine my life without them. And anytime I'm not around them, I want them to be there. And my response is always the same. So how do you know that's love? Because that may not be love at all. That may just be really good chemistry. I've had several friends in my life that would fit that description right there, and I promise you we were not in love. So friendship, it's good chemistry. It's not necessarily love. How about this one? Love is not manipulation. It's not manipulation. I'll just never, as long as I live, forget the first time I heard it. I was in youth ministry 20-some years ago now, and I was talking with a really beautiful young lady in our youth group, and so we're talking, and she begins telling me about some things that she and her boyfriend had done on Friday night. Some of it you would believe. Just trust me when I tell you this. Some of you wouldn't even believe some of it. And so I said to her, well, why would you do that? Why would you do that? And she said, because he said he loved me. Really? Where is he now? And she's crying at this point. She's sobbing, and she said, I don't know. And I said, well, have you talked to him since Friday night? And she said, no, I can't get a hold of him. That was back before cell phones. She said, no, I don't know where he is. I've called his house. I can't get a hold of him. I said, you know what? Can I be honest with you? He didn't love you on Friday night, and he doesn't love you today. He just used you. He told you what he knew you were longing to hear in order to get you to do some things that he knew you wouldn't do otherwise. That is not love. That is selfish manipulation. And you bought it. I looked right in her eyes and I said, and you bought it. I'm sorry that you bought it. And love is not manipulation. It's not manipulation before someone gets married, after someone gets married. Anything that has the words, if you really loved me, you would, attached to it. My advice would be run from that as fast as you can. Love is just not selfish manipulation. Josh McDowell, I think it was, coined the phrase, true love waits, and he's right. 1 Corinthians 13 says that one of the characteristics of love is what? Love is patient. It's patient. It's not manipulation. So what is this love that Paul talks about, and how does that look in our lives? Well, some of you may not know this. For some of you, this will be review, but let me give this to you because we've got to build this foundation as we're working our way up in this subject this morning. Let me give you the 4 kinds of love that there are in the Bible. Now, Paul picks one of these, and one of these is his subject matter that we're talking about today. But it's interesting. In fact, back in the first century, the folks who spoke Greek really had it all over us because they had 4 different words for love. Now, we only have one. You know what it is? It's love. Hello, are you there? It's love. But the context of how we use it determines it. For instance, if I say to you this morning, or if you heard me say, Chad, I love you, I hope you would know what I didn't mean by the context. But you might not know exactly what I meant. Well, the Greeks, they just had us beat all to pieces because they would use one of 4 words, and they were very descriptive, and they always knew what they were talking about. And so do we when we find those words in our New Testament in the Greek. For instance, the first word for love for them was eros. E-R-O-S, and that was the physical attraction. And by the way, there needs to be, if you're in love with somebody, there better be a physical attraction. Am I right? There better be, but you don't want to get married on it because people change. If you don't believe people change, go home and get out your album and look at your wedding pictures. We change. We change, that's all I'm saying. Over time, we change. And if you fall in love with what you get married to, chances are 30 years later, you're going to be sorely surprised. And then are you going to be out of love or in love, or where are you going to be? It's that physical attraction. It's important. You just don't want to get married on it. A husband and wife were getting ready for bed one night, and the husband was laying in bed, and the wife was looking in a full-length mirror there in their bedroom, and she was not in a good mood. And as she kind of just surveyed everything she was seeing in that mirror, she was kind of mumbling under her breath to herself, but a little louder maybe than what I think she meant to. And she said, as I look in this mirror, I just see an old woman. My face is all wrinkled, everything sags, I've got fat legs, and my arms are flabby. And by then she realizes he's listening to her, and she turns around and she said, will you